So never mind what I'd actually been planning for the past few weeks. I have just spent an entire weekend, 9 hours at a time, talking about sex and human sexuality. I mean, a lot of it I already knew, and a lot of stuff I agree with, and I got to throw in a fair bit of my own knowledge as well, which is, when it comes to college, is actually the kind of thing that I like and like to experience. But anyway, at my college, and I don't know if it's the same for your colleges, these things are called intensives, huge amounts of material all at once so that I can earn 3 credits as fast as possible. And as you can imagine, I am ridiculously tired and I haven't even had time to process all this. It's deep shit, man. And, in honor of a certain Englishman who invaded Ireland and banished all the snakes, and in honor of myself, I'm gonna pour myself another drink, and I'll tell you all about everything I've learned so far about human sexuality. Right, so the common theme that we're working with is something that I've already talked to you guys about in previous vlogs, and that is that sex isn't just sex. It influences everything. It's at the center of our development and our humanness. In this context, though, sexuality is more than just your sexual orientation, or your gender, or what's between your legs. I mean, sure, it's all that, plus our sensual beings, our bodies and how we make of it, and how we make sense of it, and most central to that is the expectation and the actual act itself. One very useful metaphor that we talked about in class is that if your personality were a tapestry that was woven as you grew up, then sexuality would be a golden thread that was very visible and interwoven all through the fabric. And the take-home in that is that in order to change any of it, well, you can't really ever change the thread themselves, and, any more than you can change the genes that activated and made you cisgender and or gay and or male, but to, change the way that the threads come together, doing that involves unraveling the person completely. Another very important notion was that sex and sexuality aren't really things that, are just kept down and turned off until puberty when the hormones come in and the gunpowder explodes and everything blows up. It's something that's really been active since you were born. Freud was into all of that, but so were many less crazy people who came after him. Okay, so it's not that kids are automatically sexy from the beginning. I'm not saying that at all. It's that there isn't really a difference between sex and the sensual self. That part of you that enjoys naps and good food and a really heartfelt hug. It doesn't really make sense to separate that from sex, which is in the same category of physical, sensual need. And the thing is that kids from birth are aware of all these things, and through exploring these sensations and guided by first the parents, and then the environment, and then the peers, through that exploration is how a person is actually made. So like, when a kid is about 2 or 3 years old, it's perfectly normal for a kid to be playing with his genitals. Or during bath time, they play with each other's. That's normal. Now, when a parent tells them, no, don't do that, or actually, like, if a baby was exploring his sense of touch, or sort of just touching other people in the face or whatever, even that, if the person is being touched and letting it happen and letting them explore, that definitely has an effect. All these extremely varied sensory stimulations, how the others in the child's life react to that exploration determines how the child will feel about it, that thing, I mean. And in turn, it develops their sexual identity. But again, I'm not saying that kids are born sluts. There's no way that a 5-year-old is even capable of comprehending that other people even have feelings. Even 13-year-olds have trouble with that. I mean, the reason why the age of consent hovers around 16 and the legal adult age is 18 is because that's when teens are only just beginning to be mature enough to not just be playing with their genitals or masturbating with other people's body parts, but really it's when they start figuring out how to connect with another person, to go beyond themselves. At that point, that's when the journey of building yourself stops being just about yourself and more about how you can participate in the lives of other people. Or you can put it this way, my professor used the metaphor of Jell-O. If you've ever made Jell-O before, you will know that after you mix the ingredients together and put it in the fridge, there's a little bit of lag time before it's set completely. So say you're an adventurous kind of cook and you wanted to add bits of fruit or nuts or different colorings to it. Well, you couldn't just do that from the beginning or everything will just sink to the bottom. But if you wait for a little while for the jello to congeal a little bit, then you hit a window in which you can put all sorts of ingredients right where you want them. And then when the jello is finally set, that's it. The only way to get rid of anything you've put into it is to tear the whole thing apart. In that sense, the jello is the person's total sexual identity. My professor called it a person's love map. The little bits of fruit or whatever are those things that we have learned are sexy for us. Do you like your nipples licked? Do you want to be peed on? Do you really hate smelly feet? Can you only get turned on when the lights are off? Fetishes and paraphilias, little details, your perfect idea of the hottest person you could ever wish to have sex with. Those little details are put into you around the age of 6 or 10 or whatever. You know, the latency stage, as Freud would put it. And when puberty happens, you're set. For life. The other really important metaphor, especially when it relates to how growing up works, is consider yourself like a nut. When you're young, nuts may be encased in pretty fleshy fruit. It may be the kind of nut that's fresh and green and attractive and smooth. But inside the actual important part, which is the nut, is bitter and small and underdeveloped. Young people are like that. Pretty, but not quite ready inside yet. Not consumable. As a person grows older, some of the prettiness fades, maybe some wrinkles happen, the shell turns brown, but underneath, the nut is well developed and sweet and delicious. So, basically what I'm saying is let's not obsess over having sex with virgins because, it's so much better when somebody actually knows what they're doing. You can tell how much I agree with what I've been learning lately. I really do believe that sex is the center of everything. And I don't mean in just the pervy, everyone's a slut kind of way. Although really, you're all freaks of different flavors, and don't even try to deny it. Embrace it. It's part of what makes you who you are. But also in the overreaching sense, our attitudes towards sex and how we see our sexual natures and how our sexual needs are fulfilled, all of that comes together and influences everything in our lives. And you, dear viewers, should at least be aware of that. The sooner you know what you need, the better you will be at taking care of yourself. And essentially, that is the very basics of how you become an enlightened human being.